Hello, welcome to Gate Crashers, a podcast dedicated to kicking open the door to your next favorite thing. So, usually here is where we'd say what our mission and our creed, our code is, and we want to make, which is to make everything nerdy accessible to everyone. However, we're not really doing a universe today so much as we are talking about a group of people and representation. So, before we do that, I'm John Scott, he/him.
Oh, and I am Ashley, and I go by she, her.
So, one of the big things at Gate Crashers that we're all about is we want to give people with diverse perspectives and backgrounds and creeds a voice. So this month, April, when this comes out, it'll be the end of April, is Autism Awareness Month. And that is to represent all kinds of forms of autism and everything. Just give that recognition and raise awareness about it. So we figured, Ashley and I figured that we would talk about something that has been on our minds recently, thanks to a certain movie by a certain filmmaker, yes, quote unquote. We'll get to that in a second. We figured we'd talk about what we've seen in terms of media and the representation of autism, which hasn't been as much as you'd think, even though we're starting to get a little better.
Yes.
But we kind of want to talk about where we're coming from with our perspectives. So Ashley, I'll let you go first.
Okay, so from my perspective, I'm actually a neurotypical parent of a little guy who is on the spectrum. I myself, like probably many neurotypical people, really didn't know too much about the autism community growing up. It wasn't until I really came in contact that I really started to understand. And now looking back, I probably had a lot of friends on the spectrum, but, you know, when you're a kid, you weren't really talking about like a diagnosis. My son was our first child, so I was like really already like flying blind in that aspect. And then when he was diagnosed, it was like a really scary time, and not because we were afraid of the diagnosis, or like upset about it, but I felt like really far behind in like being able to understand like how I could help him.
Can I ask a question before you continue?
Sure,
if you want to reveal this, when was he diagnosed? Like at what age?
So he was actually diagnosed like pretty early, like before 2.
Okay.
And that I really can only say is my husband was a pediatric nurse, and he had speech delays, and a lot of people in your family, like when you start to notice like certain delays are just like, oh, you know, he's a boy. Sometimes that like happens. And so you're just like waiting. And also when it's your first child, you're also kind of like, I have no idea when these things are supposed to happen. They don't really give you a handbook. They just give you the baby and they just send you home. So,
I know how that feels.
Yeah.
Get to my perspective in a second, but
yeah. So we at that time, like he had felt really strongly that we should have him like tested. And of course we did. And he ended up falling on the autism spectrum. So I've really like dedicated he's 7 now. So I guess like the last like 5 years of my life have really been like dedicated to trying to be an ally to the community and like really trying to understand like his perspective, so that I can help him grow into the like productive little member of society like every parent wants their kid to be. But honestly, in like doing that, but keeping the essence of like who he is. Right.
Awesome. Well, yeah. That's the good thing for you is that, and even though you're kind of flying blind, at least in the last 5 years, even 5 years, you've had at least there's so many resources and things at your disposal.
Yes. Yeah, I can't lie. We have like such a great support team, like village behind us, like every therapist we've worked with. Like I know I just feel really comfortable with like the people that we have working with us that have like his best interest at heart. And honestly, I'm just so excited to be talking about this with you, John, and just like really understanding how like media gets like the neurodivergent world like right and wrong. Because a lot of times if someone doesn't know someone on the spectrum, this is the only, I guess, like exposure they get to it sometimes.
Exactly. And because like you were saying, flying by the seat of your pants, that was me and my family, because my backstory is I'm 28 and I was diagnosed with specifically Asperger's syndrome at the age of 3. So that's a lot of like more social things. So I also had delayed speech. I had a lot of, and when I did have delayed speech, it was a lot of my language was very was scripting, basically is what it's called.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, my son does that too.
yeah. So all my stuff I would repeat, I'd hear from TV, or I'd make up words to explain what I needed. So like when I was a kid, if I needed my shoes tied, I would say like fix it socks or something like that. So keep in mind, like you have to understand, I'm 28. This is 1996. So 1996, there's literally nothing. There's barely anything out there. So I understand your perspective by flying by the seat of your pants, because we were coming into this with almost little to no perspective, and the stigma of it still being kind of there, even though it was getting better. But
like I said, like I don't really remember. I remember having a friend who like I knew had ADHD, but I don't remember anybody talking about autism. I'm like around the same age that you are. Like I don't remember anybody.
Autism really didn't start getting talked about, I don't think, until the last maybe like 10, 15 years or so.
Yeah.
And even then, World Autism Awareness, it wasn't like made awareness until like the UN did something about it, because that's what ended up happening. The UN recognized it on April 2nd, starting in 2007. So yeah, literally.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, at this point now we're at like 1 in 54 kids are being diagnosed with autism. So there's definitely, and I think it's honestly just like they understand what to look for more now, and what should be housed under that umbrella. And
what tools can be used.
Yeah, like I honestly think that there were probably almost just as many people like when we were younger that could have had this diagnosis, but it just was
undiagnosed and everything.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's our backstory. And what our big thing, what we want to talk about today is our, not, I want to say lack, but what we've seen in terms of representation in the media, both positive and negative, in terms of
just a discussion.
Yeah. Films, shows, stuff like that. So that's pretty much where we're going to be coming in. So I kind of want to get the positives out the way to start with, because I do feel like there are, and I feel like we've started making some really good examples the last couple of years, starting with, you put this down here, Sesame Street, I think is the first big one that finally got some media recognition. That's
the first one that I remember, like after my son being born, going like, oh, there's a character.
So for everyone who doesn't know, the Sesame Street character, Julie, I believe her name is, I don't watch Sesame Street anymore. I don't have.
It's okay. We do. It's Julia.
Julia. Okay.
Yes.
Julia has autism. And so they've explained it as they have, she has hard time with sensitive noises. She's nonverbal, or. She's
again,
you would know better than me, because I don't watch Sesame Street anymore.
She is verbal. She has limited verbal. She doesn't, I don't think if I remember correctly, she doesn't speak in full sentences. One thing I really liked that Sesame Street did recently was, for the pandemic, I know a lot of kids on the spectrum are having difficulties wearing their masks, and they actually did a video special with Julia working on that, which we watched. Nice. Yeah, it was really, really great. So they've been doing, Sesame Street's been doing a wonderful job.
Oh, that's good. I'm looking right now, and yeah, I guess they consulted the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network.
Yes, yeah, and they have really,
which is one of the big ones, which I'll come back to them in a second.
Yeah, they look for the right places to get some information from.
And I feel like that's a good thing, is that there are people, when they do consult, because some of it's used for like humor, some of it is just really passed over, and they don't really talk about it too much. Like, look at Abed for Community. They mentioned he has Asperger's, but they never really bring attention to that. They just kind of, it's the one case where treating it quirky, but why kind of works.
Yeah, and honestly, he never really felt like he was a joke. And I truly felt like a lot of his episodes, and like you said, they never really come out a lot and talk about his diagnosis. But especially, I think it's like there's an episode where he's making a film. It's in the first season. I forget.
Oh, is it the one about the one where he's making a film about his life and how his dad doesn't understand him?
Yes. Oh my gosh. When I watched that, I was just I actually it brought me to tears a little bit, because I don't know, I struggle a lot with understanding that I guess my son doesn't experience things the same way I do.
Yeah.
And how I could I really just like, I don't know, want to know what it's like to experience things his way so I can help him or help him navigate the world. And I don't know, watching that episode specifically, like really, I don't know, did something to me as a parent. It was just interesting looking at things from Abed's perspective.
It was. And I'll get back to Abed and people like him in a second, but I feel like, yeah, Abed's definitely one. And there's also the episode where he ruins Dr. Duncan's, Professor Duncan's like little like experiment by waiting in the room all day.
Yeah.
That just made me laugh because I could be like, honestly, I could sit in a room for the whole day. Like that would be me. I would just be cool getting up and leaving. Like, I get it. But, you know, so you've had those examples. You've had, I think Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood had an episode this past week.
They do. They're actually having, I think, like a new autistic character joining.
See, that's good.
Yes.
That's good. As long as there's proper consultation and it's done well, I'm happy with it. Honestly,
like PBS in general has been, and this is coming from a parent's perspective, like across the board, fantastic. In raising like awareness for younger kids so that they like have the experience. And even if they're not on the spectrum themselves, but like their classmates and their peers, like my son's in kindergarten right now, they're obsessed with a show called like Xavier Riddle. And this like past episode, they like met Temple Grandin. Like, I don't know. It's just, yeah. And they're doing,
for those
like,
of you who don't know, Temple
job.
Grandin is like one of the key, like, influential like speakers who has autism herself.
Yes.
And she's wonderful. She has a wonderful like speeches. I think there's a bunch of TED Talks you can find online, but that's awesome. See, I wish I had that because that was my mom had me watch as a kid, was just PBS. And on PBS I had Arthur reading Rainbow.
Arthur's got an autistic character now. I think George is autistic.
Where
I know.
I hear all this and I'm just like, where was this like 20 something years ago?
I know.
It's great. Don't get me wrong. I'm happy about it, but it's just like,
And that's why we're doing this, honestly, because media
to bring attention and to bring awareness.
Yes.
Yeah. That's why we're doing this. It sucks that, you know, I had to deal with all these things and they never had that when I was a kid. I mean, Daniel Tiger, we were saying Sesame Street. And then we have the more authentic example. Well, okay, I say authentic where one of them I have is authentic, or two of them are authentic and one of them sort of is and isn't.
Yeah.
Which is The Ringer was okayed by the Special Olympics Committee.
It was, yes. They did consult with them.
But I don't think they had anyone who had autism or any kind of ability on the spectrum in that movie. But
I think maybe.
But I think it's also like a wide-ranging sort of thing, not just autism. So maybe that wasn't the best example. But the best examples I can think of right now is Peanut Butter Falcon and this wonderful short that Pixar put out called Loop.
Yes, Loop. And I'm going to do an honorable mention for Float as well.
I haven't seen Float.
Oh, Float is the one. Okay. You know what? Now I wish you had watched it. I should have sent it to you ahead of time. It's actually from a parent's perspective. So the gentleman that drew
good.
Yeah, it's the I know that the artist who drew it, his son is on the spectrum, and it was just, I mean, I'll give you a short little synopsis, but he is outside with his son. His son starts floating in the sky and he's like, my son is floating. This is amazing. But they're outside and their neighbors are staring at them. And then the father becomes weary of people watching them and thinking that his son is different. So the father starts to lead like a reclusive life. He's really attached to his son, doesn't want him to go out. And his son's always trying to slip away from him. They go to a park and he has a meltdown there. And the dad has a little bit of a meltdown too. Because people are watching. It's really emotional. It makes me cry.
I am mad. If you hear us, ladies and gentlemen, if you hear us bouncing around, it's mainly because we're just excited and nervous to talk about it because this is such a big thing and we don't want to get this wrong.
Yeah, and this is Loop is great, and Float is really great from a parent's perspective because it honestly.
And Loop is great from the child's perspective because you really don't know about Loop. Loop focuses on a girl with nonverbal autism who goes on a canoeing trip with a neurotypical regular teenage boy.
Yeah,
and it's this wonderful story about him accepting who she is and learning how to work with her and be more understanding and accepting of her. The behind the scenes is incredible. They consulted, I think, the Self Advocacy Network.
Yeah, and also the young girl that did the vocals for the character, she is on the spectrum as well. They made a lot of accommodations for her that I was like so happy with. They had her in the studio and noticed she was having like a really hard time in that environment. And Disney, being Disney, has a lot of resources. They brought the studio to her house where she was most comfortable and actually still had her like be a part of the production. I thought it was amazing.
Exactly. And wow. Almost making the person with autism be comfortable in their environment. That's almost like someone. Let me get to that. But that's a big thing for me, is that the idea of, what feels better, regular people playing roles versus those who aren't regular people playing those roles versus those who have autism, I guess is what I'm saying. Like what's really the best option? I think for me, from my perspective, I'm always going to be someone who wants to see someone who has autism play a character that might be like that. Like, we have famous celebrities like Dan Aykroyd, Daryl Hannah from the Kill Bill movies, but it would be nice to see more of, like, look at Peanut Butter Falcon, whose character has Down syndrome, or the Pixar short Nonverbal Autism.
I will tell you, like, I don't know if you know this, John, but I work in theater and I've worked in film, and as an actor who is neurotypical, I would 1,000% want a role that I was going towards if it was a character that had a disability or was neurodivergent. I would want that to go to an actor.
Yeah, and it's because the problem
was representative of the character.
Because the big thing I have with it is that, yes, there are some actors who can pull it off well by not calling attention to it. See, like, the Blue Power Ranger from the 2017 reboot mentions it once. It's never brought up again, but it's like that knowledge that that explains some things. And I was like, okay, this is fine, though. This I'm okay with.
Yeah.
Whereas, and the color, having it be the Blue Ranger, specifically the color, I'll get into, but
did they do that on purpose?
I don't know. I genuinely don't know. And that's what I'm curious about. I don't think they did, but like.
But it's also that it's there.
It's there. And I'm just like, okay. But, I always feel like it makes it more authentic of a film. That connection feels authentic with someone who has autism. It's like again, or Down syndrome or anything like that. So Peanut Butter Falcon, which has an actor who was on the spectrum. They actually found him at a camp for people with disabilities who were into acting, is wonderful in the film. I literally just watched it before we started recording, and he is genuinely, it makes everything feel so much more authentic in what he's doing. Like it makes him, and even though Shia LaBeouf is a problem now, a big problem, but it makes his relationship with, it makes their relationship feel more believable.
That film's got a real Mark Twain vibe to it, doesn't it?
Actually, it's a modern day version of the Huckleberry Finn story.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I just read Huckleberry Finn for a class, so it was like fresh in my mind. Yeah, I did. So when I saw the trailer, I was like, this looks just like that.
Yeah. And I say Down syndrome, like I say, like, it has it's a form of autism. Like, it could not be. I know it's 10 to 25 more times more common that it is, but so if I'm saying it wrong and someone's offended, I do apologize. I don't want to cause any offense, but yeah, that movie is wonderful. Go watch Peanut Butter Falcon. It's so goddamn good.
Oh.
But again, it makes the role more authentic, whereas you have an example like,
Atypical, the character, he doesn't have autism. And you're watching it, and the whole show is about that. And while the show was good, the whole time I just kept thinking, like, how much better or more, like, I don't know, believable I would find it if I knew the actor was really representing the community.
Did the actor in the show have autism?
No, that's the thing. Like, he doesn't. And that show,
I haven't seen Atypical, so I can't.
It's like a lot of acclaim, and people really like it. And I was like, I should check this out because I knew we were going to talk about this a little bit. So I did watch some episodes, and while it's good, that is the one thing I kept thinking about the whole time was it could be better.
Okay. Because you feel like it would be better if it was someone with
honestly,
autism.
like just I don't know. I just find like more connection with something where I feel like the representation is there. Like you wouldn't write a role. I don't know. Like I just feel like you wouldn't write a role for somebody with like like a different race and then cast somebody else. And I mean, when they do that, when that happens, people are like, "Why did you do that? That was terrible!" Like
exactly, and yet no one causes any like stink about it because they're like, we have I guess we can transition now because we can go into this of like, we have some like negative some examples that are like it kind of works but it doesn't, and also they're just bad. Like I'm gonna say like one of those that kind of works but doesn't because it's not inauthentic is like The Good Doctor. I've seen a couple episodes of.
Yeah, I've seen a couple episodes of this too.
And it's like Freddie Highmore does a great job. I'm not gonna say he's a bad actor, but it's just kind of like you look at it and you just think like,
Yeah.
And to this knowledge, I don't know if like Freddie Highmore himself has it. I don't think so.
I don't believe so. I think I like read an article about it because once I like knew we were doing these conversations, I kind of started like looking up the actors and actually trying to check whether or not. And honestly, I only really found one, which is Kayla Cromer on Everything Is Going to Be Okay on Freeform. And
that's good.
Yeah, so there is some representation going on.
That's good. I haven't seen that show. I literally just found out about it like a couple of hours before we started filming, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, I actually think the second season like drops tonight on Freeform. So you're welcome.
So you're welcome. So there's a Freeform plug. Freeform, please sponsor this video. But yeah, so it's just like I look at that. I look at Ben Affleck and The Accountant.
Yeah.
Kind of why, like, just like you try, but it's like you don't feel authentic, especially Ben Affleck. Like, because it's Ben Affleck, like you don't like look at that and you think immediately
has autism. Yeah. Thinking about this earlier, I was kind of like, why is it that they've gotten when we watch TV shows that have like maybe a character that has Down syndrome, they're always cast with somebody of that community. And I feel like it's because it is like more of a visible diagnosis, whereas like autism, they're like, oh, we could get away with this.
Yeah, like I'm thinking of like the girl from American Horror Story.
Yeah, I mean, you look at on Glee, there was Netflix's Never Have I Ever. They all cast like appropriately for their communities that they're representing. And I just wish the autism community really had that luxury as well, because they really do seem to like skip over that and just cast whoever.
That's good. I feel like with American Horror Story, the actress Jamie Brewer, it's really not paid attention as much. It's just that she has it.
Yeah.
At least from what I remember. It's been a while since I've seen the other seasons, but what I remember, it doesn't seem like it was called much attention. That it's just, she has it. But I think the other thing, and this is a trope I'm so tired of, because this is going back to like Good Doctor and I Am Sam. And not I Am Sam, The Accountant,
Rain Man.
And is this whole like they're amazing and they have this like really good at this one thing. They're savants at it, and it's almost like a magical power that grants them almost like
I feel like
abilities.
Yeah, and I feel like that's what most people think of when media has been the only like I guess understanding of autism that they've had. It's either they social. Like I don't know,
like a spiritual, like he's above normal men, or he or she are above normal men. They are gods amongst us. And it's like, all right, it's cool being compared to a god, but like at the same time, I also just want to see like regular people, like Peanut Butter Falcon, which is literally about just a guy who is into wrestling, wants to find this wrestler, teams up with problematic Shia LaBeouf, and they go on an adventure.
Yeah, when you look at films like, what was it, like Predators, where the whole movie like hinged on the...
Oh my God, I completely forgot about the Predator doing that. Oh no.
Like Mercury Rising, which I think has like, is it like Bruce Willis or something?
Oh, is that the one where he's protecting the little boy?
Yes, the little boy has autism in that as well. And it's the same.
I haven't seen that. I heard it wasn't good though.
Yeah, it's like the same situation where there's like a code to be cracked and only the child with autism who's like insanely fixated on something.
There was one I wanted to see that I didn't get a chance to watch before this. It was the one with Dakota Fanning where she's the Star Trek fan.
Oh,
and she,
yes, Please Stand By. Yes, that's what it's called. Please Stand By.
Where it seemed like she was just going on an adventure just to go to the Star Trek convention.
Yes, and while I like what the film was about, I wish that they had cast somebody on the spectrum.
Because this is the problem we've been dealing with. I've been dealing with for the last 20-something years.
Yeah, it's like trying to like it's being happy that they're lifting up like the autistic experience, but at the same time, like I don't know, not doing it full justice by just
or it's like people just think of like Forrest Gump.
Yeah, or What's Eating Gilbert Grape,
which I actually never seen. I have seen Forrest Gump, but
well, yeah, both of them.
I feel like Forrest Gump isn't like explicitly like autism, but
yeah.
I feel like
I think back
with
then
a mental
too,
disability, that's what they think of.
Yeah. Yeah, and that also is like sometimes like a disservice to like everyone in the community. Like it's like a range of like different things that could be going on. So it's kind of sometimes hard to like just nail down like one thing and have that be representative of everybody.
Exactly. And it's like, the idea of, an autistic man being an assassin and the accountant. I'm like, that could be a good idea.
Yeah.
But then you put Ben Affleck in the movie, and I'm like, that's taking me right out immediately.
It's just Ben Affleck at this point.
At that point, it's Ben Affleck who's just more sullen and quieter than usual.
Yeah.
And then you have the bad examples, or the examples of like
not super happy with.
Not super happy with. And I do you want to start with the reason why we did this in the first place, or that's going to take
as well? We might as well just dig right in.
All right, we've been kind of like hinting. We've been hinting at this so badly. So the reason why we wanted to do this episode in the first place, that really kind of made us, inspired us, I guess you should say, is Sia.
Yeah.
Sia, if you don't know, if you've been living under a rock since 2021 started,
you're so lucky.
Sia, yes, you are. Sia came out with a movie called Music. It is about a girl with autism.
She's nonverbal too. She's completely
nonverbal girl with autism.
Yeah.
And Kate Hudson has to come back home and like stop living her carefree life and take care of her. And there are musical sequences which portray the character's perspective.
Like I think it's like inside music is the character who is
the character.
Yes, and it's like inside her head what she's seeing.
The problem is that the main actress, who has starred in every Sia music video, I guess, since Sia became a thing.
Yeah, it's Maddie Ziegler from Dance Moms, if anybody was a fan back in the day.
Dance Moms.
Dance Moms.
Good for
Who knew we could connect all these things?
Great. She is not autistic.
No,
and
she's not.
Sia was rightly criticized for casting someone who was not autistic as an autistic girl.
And not
instead of admitting they were right, Sia decided to double down on that.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even say she was like chastised in any sort of way other than people from the community saying like, hey, like, why wasn't this an option? Like, I didn't feel like they were being overly vicious with her, but any sort of negative.
See, it feels vicious, but then I realized it's her, the one that was being vicious.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. She came back like tenfold. Like she was at a 10. They were
like someone said they auditioned for the role and she called them a bad actor.
Yeah, she just said like, oh, well, you clearly weren't good enough. Like that type of a thing. Where it's
and then the other problem, and this is what I was saying before about, Disney doing the right thing and making someone comfortable enough to still do the role. Sia did the opposite and came out and said, hey, by the way, we hired a girl with autism, but she found it stressful and uncomfortable. And I'm like, you're the director.
Yeah.
Isn't it your job to make it comfortable?
Here's the thing. You make accommodations. There's like, obviously the Americans like with Disabilities Act that in most, or pretty much all like workspaces, like accommodations for people with disability when you hire them. So I don't understand how this just keeps getting like autism for the film community just keeps getting like negated. Like they're just like, oh, well, we really can't make any accommodations, so let's just hire somebody that's neurotypical.
Oh, and that's what bothers me is that there are no, and this is why we're doing this, is why we want to bring attention to this, because it's like we usually are about positive, but it's frustrating when there isn't that positivity, there isn't that representation of,
and they could do better, they're choosing not to.
Exactly. I mean, like you said, PBS is doing something. Peanut Butter Falcon did cast somebody, at least there was that, but at the same time, you know, you have, it just feels like they're like, you know, I'm seeing again the whole, like, I mean, Kate Hudson came on Jimmy Kimmel after the whole situation and it was like, oh, it's an important conversation to have about representation. You're Kate.
You should have had somebody representing the community.
You should have had someone representing the community and not do a movie where not only are you criticizing the very community you're making the movie for, that's number one, but then you're also consulting literally the worst group you could possibly consult.
Mm-hmm. Should we say their name?
It's Autism Speaks. You all know this. If you haven't done your news, you know. They're genuinely the worst. I without getting into it, because otherwise I'll go on a tirade and that'll be the whole crux of the episode. And that's not what I'm trying to do.
We have more to talk about.
We have more to talk about than that. But yeah, so Sia came out and, you know, she came out with this. She came out, you know, about the criticism and everything, and she criticized people, and then she would try to backtrack. And
I watched every interview that she gave. I watched all of them, and I found it very interesting.
And then she included a restraint technique that has been known to kill.
Yep.
Which is dangerous and wrong. And Golden Globes decided, here's a couple Golden Globe nominations for you.
I cannot believe that after everything, the media storm that happened after that they were still like, yeah, you know what? Let's nominate this one. Sounds like a good idea.
I think that's what's made us want to like talk about like why representation is so important, is because of that Golden Globes. I think it was the one that finally broke the camel's back for me.
Yeah. I do know, which I found interesting, in her like apology tour that she went on, she specifically stated that Maddie Ziegler seemed to be very nervous and upset about portraying a character in this community and doing it wrong, and I guess honestly being chastised for it. And Sia was like, it'll be okay, I'll protect you. And that clearly like couldn't happen. You can't protect people. Like, you're an adult making decisions. Like,
apparently at the time they shot this, Maddie Ziegler was 14.
Yeah, like she was a kid.
So even if she didn't want to do it anymore, it's like you kind of couldn't, because you're not a legal adult. I don't know. But she seems to have distanced herself as much as she could.
Yeah, she has not like really done any publicity for the film. And she also hasn't said anything against it either.
I think she said something, I thought I heard somewhere, but I don't remember what it was.
I don't really hold it against her, because she was a child at the time and there were a lot of adults around, and clearly she did voice concern over it, and they just kind of hushed her up and said to keep going.
Yeah, and I mean, that's like really the big negative impact that we've seen so far. That's like, I think, the biggest one. But, you know, there have been some others. I think like I put a statement on the Gay Crashers Twitter on this one, which was me talking about, there was this thing going around that people were like, the Flash in the Snyder Cut has autism or something like that. And then the people who had made this statement, who I do not believe were autistic, they had come out and said, oh, if you don't believe this, then you're ableist. And I'm like, but if you don't get that sense, nor do they explicitly state it, that's not ableism. You calling an ableist for not agreeing with you is ableist.
Yeah. I don't know. If there's like no specific like creator from the piece like coming forward and saying like this is what we were intending, it is really just kind of like,
I don't speak for Zack Snyder, Chris Terrio, Ezra Miller, etc. I don't speak for them. So if they came out and said like, yeah, it was supposed to be like this, then I retract all statements.
Yeah. But that hasn't happened. They've not said anything about it. But
it was this idea of just like, we automatically associate awkward and quirky with just, oh, he has autism or he has those traits, so he must be autistic. It set a precedent that I didn't like. I thought was dangerous.
I just think it's like hurtful to people, because not everybody, like no one is the same about anything. I don't know. I just think it's like putting people in boxes, and that's unnecessary.
Yeah. And it's just like, just because they're quirky and weird doesn't mean they have this. It just means they're quirky and weird.
That kind of happened with Dear Evan Hansen on Broadway too.
Another one I haven't seen because Broadway is expensive and also shut down.
It is, but I did get the chance to go see it, and
was it good?
It was so good. I was really, really good. I can't lie. The show was great. There's some Evan himself is like a questionable character. He's got like a lot of morally gray areas, but nobody's ever come out and said that he has autism. Like no one said that. And if they have somewhere, I've never seen it, and I've looked for the information. Because I mean, sitting in the audience as a parent of a child with autism, I was kind of like, oh, maybe this character is like autistic, but I don't know. But I would never go out there and explicitly say like, oh, that character has autism, because I really don't know. I'm not sure. They've never said that. There were some things about it, maybe, but that's not, I don't, it is that thing where people like come out and they're like, oh, well, he has autism, or you're saying the community is bad. Because I mean, I'm not going to give away the plot of the show, but he makes some interesting choices that are questionable. And it makes you wonder if like people are saying that because of his diagnosis that he made those choices, but that character doesn't have a diagnosis. So it's just, you're right. It's like harmful to then add that to things where it's not explicitly stated.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's the idea that you're just pigeonholing us is what I have the problem with. That's my biggest thing. And I mean, you know, again, there have been better examples, but it just feels like recently, like especially with the whole Sia thing, it just felt like we were taking like 50 steps backwards on this.
Yeah,
and we're rewarding it for it.
Yeah,
I know the Golden Globes are considered. I know they're considered. No, it's fine. It's all right. I know the Golden Globes are considered a joke and everything, but
that's still like notoriety.
Yeah, still.
And it's giving a voice to a film that is like, and in some aspects hurtful, especially in those moments where they are using like that holding pose on somebody who's having a meltdown, like that.
And they're like, literally the whole idea is that you're like sitting on someone and putting their face in the dirt, and that suffocates them.
Yeah, no, not good. Okay.
Not at all. And that's what bothers me the most. So I know it sounds like I'm getting really quiet. It sounds like my fight's gone out, and it's like, it's not, but it's just like, I'm tired. I'm tired of this. Like, I think like really Sia was the one that finally got me off the sidelines and made me think, hey, this isn't good. Maybe I should speak out about this.
Yeah. And there are so many, I just don't know why I don't know why she decided to, it's her film. I don't understand why that was a choice that she made. I've watched now quite a few moments of characters in TV shows having meltdowns. I've had experiences of my own child having meltdowns. I've really, never had to sit on him in a way such as that. It just and again, like before I even go any further, I should have pointed this out at the beginning of the episode. All the thoughts and opinions I say are just my own. I work for a school that has children with autism, and for me at least, these are just my thoughts and feelings on it. Not representative of any place or whatever, but I do work with children on the spectrum as well, giving that my perspective to the next generation, I guess is how you would put it. Yeah.
And I haven't seen that technique. I've never even seen it.
This is crazy. I know people who are, what do they call them? Like ABAs, like the behavioral assistant.
Oh, yeah. I think CPIs or whatever.
Yes. Yeah. I do know people who have been taught that in school for that. That's actually even more disturbing. Yeah.
This might be like the most serious episode.
I know. It impacts clearly 1 in 54 kids in the United States.
We're gonna have to end on Joe. Maybe I'll just bully Ethan before the episode's over. We'll just do that.
Did your buddy Ethan like the peanut butter falcon?
What?
Did your buddy Ethan like the peanut butter falcon?
I have a feeling Ethan actually did like it, so I really can't.
Good.
I'm not going to say also Ethan liked music because that would be terrible.
Yeah. I did take, when I was looking at some information, I did find like a really great organization. It's called the National Disability Theater. If anybody wants to look up actors, a part of the disability community, which autism falls under their group that they umbrella, and their stance is that 20% of the American population is disabled, but 90% of like disabled characters are played by non-disabled actors, which I thought was a really interesting statistic.
Can you repeat that one more time? I'm sorry. I go like,
sure, yeah, it's like 20% of the American population is disabled, but 90% of like disabled characters on TV shows, plays, anything, they're played by non-disabled actors. So I just thought that was like important, like an important statistic, because it really goes to show you how little, not just people of autism, but like disabled people in general, like across the board, are just kind of like.
I mean, I feel like I could go on. I could say stuff about like Sheldon Cooper, but like,
yeah.
Sheldon Cooper, I feel like that's been said. Like,
yeah,
it hasn't been explicitly stated he has autism, but like it's been like almost everything but. Yeah. And it's a problem because that show's just not funny. It's really not.
Yeah, that's and it's hard because that was like the most popular TV show for like a time period. And
I don't know how.
Honestly, like the only like experience some people got with what they thought autism was Sheldon.
Even though they never exclusively said it.
Yeah.
But like, and Big Bang Theory is just like, it's the dude bro version of nerd culture. I don't like it. Like, it
really did. It's like, I don't know, making it palatable for the masses.
It is making palatable. Like literally I saw like this one clip where they just listed off a bunch of nerd things in a row and then the laugh track started. I'm like, where's the joke? There is none. But there are so many good examples out there that we've seen. Like for every like couple steps forward in representation, we're seeing like 20 steps backward. I mean, having that idea of like that 90%, that number that needs to go down.
Yeah. And honestly, like it's through supporting groups like that where they're working towards making those accessible roles available to the people that they should be going to.
There is one thing, because I know this is a comic show or comics. Mm-hmm. It started out as a comic show. There is a wonderful, wonderful comic series called Face Value Comics. Has an autistic superhero.
Oh yeah, you were telling me about that.
I believe the author. I believe the author has.
Yeah, I think you sent me an article about it. Like I think is that the one with the little boy who does?
Yeah, and the big thing is like they have facial expressions.
Yeah.
And the facial expressions like are really expressive and wide. And from what I'm seeing here, it was I don't think he has it, but he made it for individuals who have autism and those who want to understand more about it. So there is people out there who do not have it, who are doing great things with this. I mean, again, you have the you have Face Value Comics, you have the TDF Theater Fund, which, have you heard about this?
No, tell me more.
So TDF, before COVID hit, had autism-friendly performances. So it was like very sensory environment. Like,
oh, that's awesome. We love to go to those.
Oh yeah. So there was like an autism, like, you know, they dim the light, they raise the lights. They have other sensitivity issues. They have little bean bags outside, needing a break, sensory overload, stuff like that.
Our local football team, we're in the Eagles. We're in Eagles country over here.
How dare you?
Sorry.
Actually, I can't say anything. Giants are terrible since forever, so I can't say anything.
But I will say the Eagles have been great. We actually have an autism foundation. Like I run their.
Oh, I've actually heard of this. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've actually done their they do like a mile fun run for like families. They actually have a sensory room inside the stadium, so you can bring your kids who are on the spectrum and then still have a quiet, safe space for them to go and sit and play Legos if it's too loud or too noisy. They do a lot of great stuff, and all of the money that they raise goes to our like local hospitals doing research. So it's really great because it stays like locally, the funding and everything, and is really helping kids in the area.
See, that's good, because there are places out there that are doing good work, not only for those with autism, not just media. This is now talking to me about like.
Yeah, it's got a little bit broad. Sorry,
this got super broad, but this has been something that's been bothering me for years. It's just, you know, there are people out there who have, you know, who have been like doing good work for people with autism have been, I think, helping make more steps, especially in media. There's also a speaker, Carrie Magro. He is on the spectrum. He was like nonverbal on the spectrum, and then they had he like is a big speaker now. He it also has advocated for autism, especially in media. Like there is, I think, a new PBS show coming out called Mac and Moxie.
Woo.
That has a boy with autism. Apparently, Matthew McConaughey came out with a letter or a video about supporting the autism community. So he's been giving attention to that, and I've actually met him. Like I've actually like done a interview with him, and I've met him. He's actually a genuinely nice dude.
Wait, with Matthew McConaughey?
No, Carrie Magro. Okay, if I met Matthew McConaughey, that'd be the greatest thing ever. Okay, just
like you should have led with that.
I should have opened the episode. Darn it. But yeah, so they're just, all we ask of you, our dear listeners, is to just, just do just look at research, just be an ally to the community,
support your friends.
And if you are a creator in film, television, arts, any kind of the arts or media or anything like that, or even nerd culture, help get that 90% down. Yeah. Please just help get that 90% down, because it's such a vital thing. It's personally for someone with autism. Mm-hmm. I have been waiting. I mean, I'm glad we're seeing the steps we're finally getting. Yeah. And I will admit, like I said, the 90s didn't have any resources. Now there are so many resources out there for people like Ashley, who's for the autism community. But it's just, I want to see more of that representation on screen. I want to see more of that representation in any form of life or nerd culture of anything.
Yeah, it is so helpful, especially for kids growing up like my son, to see themselves represented. And that goes for like all different, whether they be marginalized communities, like seeing yourself in a character is so transformative. Like there are so many characters that I just like emulate because I grew up with them and I really wanted to be like them. And I felt like kindred with them. And I just want him to have that experience as well. If every character is neurotypical and there's not really something that he can grasp onto.
Or if you have I
want him to have that experience.
Or if you have an actor playing a neurotypical character and they're the character, or you have an actor playing someone with autism and the actor himself is normal, they're neurotypical. That itself is just like, it's about them, because like we said before, it doesn't feel authentic. The idea of it just doesn't like.
And I keep going back to this too, like as somebody who's like done and like studied acting, like your job as an actor is to understand like what that character is going through. I spend every day of my life going like, I just want to get inside your head to my son and like just understand how this feels to you, but I can't. So here's the thing, like I don't know how they could portray accurately what the experience of an individual with autism is, because
without casting someone who has.
Yeah, they really have no idea.
Yeah, like don't portray it as just like he's got magical ways with numbers or something, or he's good at this ability. Just do like cast an autism actor as a normal, regular person on this big grand, like if it's going on a big grand adventure or whatever, do that.
Yeah. Yep.
Just like stuff like that. It's something that we're getting better at, but we need to do more. This is starting to get super preachy.
Focus. Yeah, but it doesn't, like their diagnosis does not have to be the main focus. They can just be another character.
Like again, the Blue Power Ranger, like I said, okay, my issues with Blue aside, mainly due to Autism Speaks, issues aside, I enjoyed the fact that the actor doesn't have autism, but they literally mentioned it once and then they'll mention it again. Yeah. That's, for me, it's like, okay, that's like the one example where I sit there and I'm like, I'm fine with that. Yeah. Because they don't, they don't call attention to it and they don't like make it the end all. But, I mean, if you are going to do that, then make it the, cast someone who has it. Yeah. But if you are looking for some really positive viewing, I really don't think you can go wrong with the Disney Plus shorts. Not to bring that back around again. Actually, please bring it back around. I think the Pixar shorts, if you have young children, anything PBS is putting out right now, because what PBS is putting out is genuinely incredible.
Yeah.
Peanut Butter Falcon is another one, which I cannot. I watched that movie right before we recorded this. I cannot.
I know. I'm literally going to go watch it now.
It's so good. Problematic people in that movie aside, it's so good.
Oh.
And, you know, I mean, Abed is, again, he is played by an atypical, but it's not something that's called attention to, and it works.
But it is also, thankfully, I do think like it's written by, because who wrote
Dan Harmon?
Dan Harmon. He isn't he on the spectrum?
He said he discovered he had Asperger's syndrome.
Yes. Yeah. So I mean,
while writing Abed.
Yeah, I at least feel like it doesn't just go for actors too. It does go for people who are writing the characters as well, giving autistic voices the opportunity to write those characters would be.
Yeah, and even coming to that self-discovery, I think is a great thing. If you're coming to that self-discovery and you're realizing that, oh, we never talked about reality TV.
No. Oh, no, we didn't. Okay, so.
I'm sorry, we're bouncing all over the place.
I know. Funny enough, like, this is going to sound so bizarre because I'm not actually a normal viewer of this TV show. Way before my son was born, I happened upon an episode of Real Housewives of New Jersey, which, yes, exactly. I'm not really like someone who watches this show, but the episode, one of, I guess, the original Real Housewives of New Jersey, her son had autism. And he was nonverbal at the time. It's funny now because, well, I guess maybe not funny, but I mean, like, her son and my son had very similar like trajectories as far as like the skills that they were like lacking and needed extra work on. And I remember watching this episode, and it was like the first episode her son had learned how to say, "I love you." And I remember crying watching that. And then like maybe 4 years later, I had the exact same experience, which was crazy because it was reality TV, but it made such an impact on me. Seeing their family, like, I don't know, navigate that. And I don't really know what they're doing now, if they're on the right side of like championing voices. But I remember like what I saw then really made such a huge impact on me.
Yeah, I think in terms of reality TV, like I know Jersey Shore, I think JWoww is the one whose son was diagnosed with autism, and she's been doing ABA that she's mentioned. Yeah. And then you have stuff like Dating on the Spectrum or Love on the Spectrum, I believe it's called.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's Love on the Spectrum. Yeah, that's on.
Which I heard is actually a very positive one.
You know, that is the last one I have to watch. I haven't watched that one yet because
we haven't either, so we can't talk about that.
No, I get a little nervous around reality TV shows sometimes because I never like, I don't know. I just always worry about the tone sometimes.
Also, like, I think because of what we know about how reality TV works and how it's edited, how it's like chopped up.
Nervous, yeah.
Apparently, it's supposed to be very good, though.
Yeah, the only good like real reality TV show I've seen with a community was actually like Born This Way, which was about a group of like young adults who had Down syndrome. That was fantastic, but I have not watched Love on the Spectrum yet.
Which we will I'm going to. I definitely want to, but it's just I haven't gotten to do so yet. But we're sorry. We know what we meant to talk about that earlier, but then we bounced around to other different topics, and then we had this big ending like plea, and then we just went right back to it. But really, again, we're just please be an ally. Please go like find good places to donate that aren't Autism Speaks.
Yeah, I agree with that. Really just like I really like to recommend people look at their local like charities and places.
Yeah, they're just like local charities, local like businesses that support it. Like I know there's been a big movement recently of like working of like giving people with autism people with autism or disabilities a chance to like work in like a restaurant kind of environment.
Oh yes, yeah. There's also like some great ones for like summer camps. Like there are just like a lot of different places that you could send your money that are maybe not Autism Speaks.
Yeah. So that really, I think, is going to do it for us, because we kind of gotten everything out that we want to do. Just really be an ally, give the support where you need to give the support for the autism community. And again, really, let's get that 90% down. Really, that's the big thing, is I really want that 90% down. That would be incredible. So if any creator out there with autism is feeling inspired, like, we want to see your work.
Yeah, your work and your voice is just as important as everybody else.
Absolutely. And that's the big thing, is that your voice is equally important to everyone else's.
Yeah, and as much as I hate that the Sia movie was made, it really did open up such a huge dialogue. And that's not a positive for it at all, but
it's not, but at least it opened a dialogue.
Yeah. Yeah, because there is like, I do feel like a lot of other groups have really, like, there's been a real big push for the like hearing impaired community to have, like text on all of like online videos. Like there's really, I think there is like a movement going forward for everybody to really just be like conscious of the differences that people have in the world and making accommodations. And I really feel like I don't want autism to be left behind in this. Like,
no, I we've seen such big steps for certain communities in terms of their representation. I would hate for us to be left behind as well.
Yeah.
But, and if there's like an example we haven't mentioned that you think we should check out, or if you're someone with autism whose voice wants to be heard, if you have art, tweet at us, Gatecrashers Pod. I'm on Twitter at jmscott193.
And I am on Instagram at Ashley X, and that's also on Twitter. So Ashley X.
So, and again, yeah, if you have something that you want to share, please, we would love to hear from you and love to learn more about your art or a show or program that's positive that we might have missed in this episode.
Yes, I'm always looking for new things. So please share.
Please, we would love that. But
Thank you for talking, Jon. This was so fun.
Thank you, Ashley, for coming on to this perspective. Like, you, I think, being a neurotypical and raising a son, right? I have that right? I want to make sure I didn't get that wrong.
Yeah, he's a little guy.
Son with autism is just one of the biggest, boldest things you could ever do and step up to. And it's just incredible.
It has really changed my life, but it's changed my life in so many positive ways. And getting to meet you also and speak to you has been great because, sometimes like you're in a bubble of like they're young and you just don't know what could be around the corner. So getting to speak with you about this has been great too.
Well, thank you.
Thanks.
But so we thank everyone. If you're still here, thank you for listening.
Yeah.
Be an ally, and we'll catch you guys later.
Yeah.
Stop.